We are facing a really high-stakes dilemma with Iran. And according to Professor Robert Pape, an expert who's been modeling this conflict for 2 decades, the choices we have are way more dangerous than most people think. So let's dive into his analysis.
What this analysis shows is that the U.S. is facing a stark choice, and any kind of simple, clean resolution, that's completely off the table. We're now forced to decide between 2 monumental and, frankly, incredibly dangerous outcomes.
Professor Pape puts it bluntly. There is no going back. Both of these paths represent enormous, irreversible shifts in global politics. But the real question is, how on earth did we get to this point?
Well, according to Pape's analysis, this whole crisis is rooted in a fundamentally flawed U.S. strategy, one that was built on a dangerous underestimation of Iran's resilience and its power.
So here's the core miscalculation. For years, the modeling showed the exact same result. U.S. air power can absolutely destroy the buildings, the centrifuges, all the infrastructure. But what it cannot destroy is the actual enriched uranium. The very thing the program is designed to create in the first place.
The source material uses this really powerful analogy to explain it. Bombing the facilities is like destroying the tools for finding gold after the gold has already been collected. The most valuable asset is still there, it's hidden, and it's ready to be used.
This is a classic military paradox that we saw play out in Vietnam. By demonstrating that even overwhelming force couldn't get a total victory, the U.S. inadvertently proved to Iran that it couldn't be beaten. This didn't weaken their resolve at all. It actually strengthened it, creating the very same political dynamic that fueled the Viet Cong.
So, this flawed strategy hasn't just failed to weaken Iran. It has actively backfired, allowing Tehran to dramatically increase its power and influence on the world stage.
Iran's leverage is just incredible. By controlling shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, it can essentially hold the economies of major Asian powers hostage. And that gives it immense geopolitical power, without even firing a single long-range missile.
And you can already see this leverage reshaping the world. Key U.S. allies like India and Japan, they're refusing to take sides. The anti-Iran coalition is fracturing, and American military bases in the region have suddenly become very vulnerable targets.
Okay, so with Iran's power growing, what are the options? Let's explore that first path on the fork in the road. A full-scale ground invasion to try and take back control.
This would be one of the most difficult military operations you could possibly imagine. It involves landing Marines on hostile shores in what the source describes as a moonscape, just brutal, unforgiving terrain that is an absolute nightmare for any attacking force.
And this is where we get to the real political trap of a ground war. The assumption that casualties would force a withdrawal is just wrong. Pape argues they create this immense domestic pressure to double down, to finish the job, to honor the fallen, locking the U.S. into a bloody, prolonged, and incredibly costly conflict.
And we're not talking about a quick strike here. The analysis suggests a ground operation would last a minimum of 6 months just to get started, with no clear endgame in sight, pulling the U.S. deeper and deeper into the trap. All right, so if the ground war is a trap, what about the other path? This is the one that involves the U.S. backing down and accepting the new reality of a much, much more powerful Iran.
If this happens, the world would fundamentally shift from one dominated by the U.S. and its partners to a multipolar one, where a new coalition of China, Russia, and Iran could directly challenge American dominance.
And together, this new bloc would wield a terrifying economic weapon. By controlling over 30% of the world's oil, they could coordinate to manipulate global markets, engineer massive price shocks, and inflict incredible economic pain on the United States and its allies.
The consequences would just unfold step by step. Iran, feeling secure, would likely get a nuclear weapon within a year. The anti-U.S. alliance would solidify. Oil would be used as a weapon, and America's role as the world's protector would be fundamentally broken.
So, with both paths leading to catastrophic outcomes, you can really start to see why Professor Pape describes this as a classic escalation trap, and it's one that's been made even more dangerous by political rhetoric. You have to understand, threats of this magnitude have profound consequences. The source actually notes this is the most direct statement of genocidal intent ever made by a U.S. president, and it had a powerful and totally counterproductive effect inside Iran.
So the very rhetoric that was designed to intimidate, it completely backfired. It convinced the entire Iranian population, including those who hated their own government, that the U.S. was an existential threat. This unified the country, bolstering support for the regime and its nuclear program as their only means of survival. This timeline really shows you exactly how the trap snapped shut. Stage 1 was the bombing. Stage 2 was Iran's retaliation, taking control of the strait. That forced the U.S. to consider a ground invasion in Stage 3. And now, we're stuck here, in Stage 4, just unstably bouncing between these two terrible options with no clear path forward.
And all of this leaves us with the final and, frankly, deeply unsettling question at the heart of this entire analysis. In a situation where every single choice looks like a loss, the very definition of victory becomes unclear, and it challenges everything we thought we knew about power and strategy.